During the autopsy of a pregnant refugee, the doctor heard a baby crying from inside the sealed body bag, even though the woman had been declared dead for over 12 hours. Dr. Elena Kovacs froze, scalpel suspended mid-air, as the impossible sound echoed through the sterile morgue. The crying was faint but unmistakable, a newborn's desperate wail coming from within a corpse that should have been silent. She backed away from the examination table, her gloved hands trembling, as she called out to her assistant. But no one answered. The morgue was empty at this late hour, leaving her alone with the impossible sound. The body had arrived earlier that evening, a young woman, approximately 25 years old, found dead near the Hungarian border. Preliminary reports indicated she was a refugee who had collapsed during the final stretch of her journey. Her clothes were soaked from the rain, her feet blistered and raw. Most notably, she was heavily pregnant, perhaps 8 months along. The baby was presumed dead as well, as no signs of life had been detected at the scene. The official cause of death was listed as exposure and exhaustion, but protocol demanded a full autopsy. Dr. Kovacs had performed thousands of autopsies throughout her 15-year career as the head medical examiner at Budapest Central Hospital. She had seen the aftermath of car accidents, suicides, murders, and natural deaths. She prided herself on her steady hands and clinical detachment. But nothing in her extensive medical training had prepared her for the sound of life coming from within a confirmed dead body. Hesitantly, she approached the table again. The crying had stopped, making her wonder if exhaustion had caused her to hallucinate. She unzipped the body bag fully, revealing the woman's face. Her skin was ashen, with the unmistakable pallor of death. Lips blue, eyes closed as if in peaceful slumber. No breath stirred her chest. Dr. Kovacs checked for a pulse again. Nothing. The woman was undeniably dead. Yet, as she prepared to make the Y incision, the crying resumed, louder this time. It was coming from the woman's distended abdomen. Impossible as it seemed, the conclusion was unavoidable. Somehow, the baby was still alive inside its dead mother. Dr. Kovacs abandoned autopsy protocol and grabbed a surgical kit instead. With no time for proper preparation, she quickly swabbed the abdomen with antiseptic and prepared for an emergency cesarean section. Her hands were steady now, driven by the urgent need to save the impossible life within death. She made a swift horizontal incision across the lower abdomen, cutting through layers of skin and muscle. What she found inside defied all medical understanding. The uterus had already been cut open and carefully stitched back together with a single, expertly tied suture unlike any medical stitch she had ever seen. Someone had performed a cesarean section on this woman before her death and then sewn her back up. But why leave the baby inside? And how was it still alive? As Dr. Kovacs carefully removed the strange suture and opened the uterus, she found a newborn girl, impossibly alive despite her mother's death and the hours that had passed. The baby was small but perfectly formed, her skin tinged blue from oxygen deprivation, but quickly pinking up as she cried in the cold morgue air. The umbilical cord had been carefully clamped but not cut, still connecting the baby to her dead mother. "This is medically impossible," Dr. Kovacs whispered to herself as she cut the cord and wrapped the newborn in her lab coat. A baby cannot survive more than minutes after maternal death without immediate medical intervention. This child had survived for over 12 hours. And the single suture? Who had performed surgery on this woman? And why had they left the baby inside? The mystery deepened when Dr. Kovacs examined the woman's body more carefully. There were no signs of violence or trauma besides the surgical incision. However, on the inside of the woman's left wrist, she discovered a faded blue tattoo, a series of numbers and letters that sent a chill down her spine. It resembled the identification marks given to prisoners in Nazi concentration camps during World War II. But this woman was far too young to have been alive then. Dr. Kovacs immediately called the hospital administrator and the police. Within an hour, the morgue was crowded with officials and medical personnel, all staring in disbelief at the miracle baby, now stabilized in a neonatal unit, and the enigma of her mother's body. Detective Mark Farkas arrived shortly after midnight, his face grim as Dr. Kovacs explained what she had found. A veteran investigator with Budapest's Special Cases Unit, Farkas had built his reputation on solving the unsolvable. But even he seemed disturbed by the circumstances. "You're telling me this woman had already undergone some kind of surgery before death, and the baby survived inside her dead body for over half a day?" he clarified, his voice skeptical. "I know how it sounds," Dr. Kovacs replied, "but the evidence is right there. And look at this." She showed him the strange tattoo on the woman's wrist. Detective Farkas leaned closer, his expression changing from doubt to concern. "This type of marking hasn't been used since the 1940s, he said quietly. "And this surgical technique," he pointed to the unusual suture pattern Dr. Kovacs had preserved as evidence. "I've seen this before, in historical documentation of experimental procedures performed during the war." As dawn broke over Budapest, laboratory results from the woman's blood work came back, adding yet another impossible detail to the growing mystery. According to genetic markers and cellular degradation patterns, the woman was estimated to be between 90 and 100 years old, not 25, as her appearance suggested. "This cannot be correct," Dr. Kovacs insisted, demanding the tests be run again. The second set of results confirmed the first. Somehow, this young-looking refugee carried the genetic markers of a centenarian. The following morning, forensic historian Dr. Judith Nagy was brought in to examine the tattoo and the unusual suture. A leading expert in Holocaust documentation and medical crimes of World War II, Dr. Nagy's face went pale as she studied the evidence. "This specific tattoo pattern," she explained, her voice barely above a whisper, "was only used at one facility, a secret medical research annex of Auschwitz operated by Dr. Josef Mengele. It was where he conducted his most classified experiments on extending human life and manipulating pregnancy outcomes." The room fell silent as Dr. Nagy continued. "And this suturing technique is distinctive of Mengele's work. He developed it specifically for his subjects who underwent multiple surgeries. The single suture contains a complex knotting pattern that allows for the wound to be reopened multiple times without tissue damage." She looked up at the assembled investigators. "But this is impossible. All of Mengele's subjects and research were supposedly accounted for after the war." Detective Farkas cleared his throat. "So what you're suggesting is that this woman was somehow connected to Nazi medical experiments from 80 years ago?" "Not just connected," Dr. Nagy replied. "Based on this evidence, she may have been a subject of those experiments herself. But that would make her far older than she appears." As the investigation intensified, the team discovered more anomalies. The woman carried no identification, but her fingerprints matched partial records from a 1943 intake document at Auschwitz. The name on the fragmented record was Sara Abramovich, a 16-year-old girl from Prague. If this was the same person, she would be 96 years old. The baby, meanwhile, thrived in the hospital's neonatal unit, showing no ill effects from her impossible birth. Blood tests revealed something even more startling. Her genetic markers showed signs of deliberate manipulation, with sequences that didn't match any known natural human genome patterns. 3 days into the investigation, Dr. Kovacs received a visit from 2 men who identified themselves as representatives from Interpol's Historical Crimes Division. They requested to see all evidence and records related to the case, presenting proper authorization. After reviewing the materials, they asked to speak privately with Dr. Kovacs and Detective Farkas. "What we're about to tell you is classified at the highest level," the older agent began once they were alone. "Since the 1970s, there have been 12 similar cases across Europe, pregnant women with anomalous age markers and surgical evidence matching Nazi experimental techniques." 12 cases? Dr. Kovacs repeated in disbelief. "Yes," the agent continued, "all discovered under different circumstances, but with the same impossible contradiction. Women who appeared young but carried genetic markers of extreme age, all with evidence linking them to Mengelé's experiments, and all pregnant with genetically modified fetuses." The second agent opened a secure tablet and showed them photographs of medical records. Mengelé's most secret work wasn't just about twins or eye color as most historical accounts suggest. He was pursuing something far more ambitious: human longevity and genetic perfection that could be passed to offspring. "We believe he developed a technique to dramatically slow the aging process in certain subjects and alter the genetic makeup of their reproductive cells." Detective Farkas leaned forward. "Are you suggesting that this woman was actually a Holocaust survivor who somehow hasn't aged normally for 80 years? "That's exactly what we're suggesting," the first agent confirmed. "And based on pattern analysis from the previous cases, we believe she's part of a group of experimental subjects who escaped during the chaos at the end of the war. They've been in hiding ever since, possibly continuing to reproduce using Mengelé's techniques." "But why would they continue these procedures?" Dr. Kovacs asked, horrified. "And who is performing them if Mengele died decades ago?" The agents exchanged a glance before the older one spoke again. "That's where this case becomes even more disturbing. We have evidence suggesting Mengele successfully trained at least 3 apprentices before his reported death in Brazil in 1979. We believe at least one of them is still alive and continuing his work." The revelation sent a chill through the room. If true, it meant the darkest chapter of medical history hadn't ended with the Nuremberg trials, but had continued in secret for decades. As the investigation proceeded, analysis of the strange suture revealed traces of a compound unknown to modern medical science, a preservation agent that appeared to have kept the fetal environment viable even after the mother's death. The substance contained elements similar to experimental cryopreservation formulas developed in the 1960s, but with modifications that shouldn't have been possible with the technology available at that time. 1 week after the discovery of the body, Dr. Kovacs received an anonymous package at her home address, a weathered journal written in German, dating from 1944 to 1945. The entries detailed experiments performed on pregnant women at Auschwitz, with particular focus on a subject identified only as Patient S.A. The journal contained hand-drawn illustrations of the unique suturing technique found on the refugee's body. The final pages described a planned escape for 5 special subjects as Russian forces approached the camp. The writer referred to these women as vessels for the future of the program, each carrying genetic modifications that would only be expressed in the 3rd generation of offspring. Dr. Kovacs immediately turned the journal over to authorities, but that night the hospital's security system was breached. Surveillance cameras captured a tall, elderly man in a medical coat entering the neonatal unit where the miracle baby was kept. When security guards responded to the alarm, they found the man standing over the infant's crib. Before they could apprehend him, he swallowed something and collapsed. By the time medical staff arrived, he was dead. Autopsy of the intruder revealed another shock. The man was approximately 105 years old based on cellular markers, though he appeared no older than 70. In his pocket was a surgical toolkit containing instruments matching the design of the unusual suture found on the refugee mother. DNA analysis confirmed what many now feared. The man was related to Dr. Josef Mengele. His exact relationship couldn't be determined, but genetic markers suggested he was either a son or nephew who had also benefited from the age-retarding techniques. The investigation took an even more sinister turn when researchers analyzing the baby's blood discovered nanoscopic mechanical structures integrated with her cells, technology far beyond current medical capabilities. These microscopic machines appeared to be regulating the infant's metabolism and cellular regeneration at an accelerated rate. Under observation, wounds on the baby healed almost instantly, and her neurological development progressed at twice the normal speed. What we're seeing defies everything we know about human development, explained Dr. Catalin Varga, the pediatric specialist assigned to the case. This child's cells contain technology that resembles theoretical nanomedicine, but decades more advanced than our current research. It's as if someone from the future designed these structures. 2 weeks into the investigation, hospital staff arrived one morning to find the baby missing from the neonatal unit. Security footage had been expertly erased for a 6-hour period overnight. In the crib was a single sheet of paper bearing the same strange suture pattern, now clearly recognizable as a signature or calling card. Interpol expanded their search, connecting the Budapest case to similar incidents across Eastern Europe. A pattern emerged. Over the past 5 years, pregnant refugees matching the genetic profile of Mengele subjects had been appearing near borders, always alone, always dead or dying, but with babies that survived under impossible circumstances. What happened next sent shockwaves through the international medical community. 3 days after the baby's disappearance, 5 major research hospitals across Europe simultaneously received anonymous deliveries containing tissue samples from the missing infant. Accompanying each sample was detailed documentation of the nanotechnology found in her cells, information that accelerated medical research in cellular regeneration by an estimated 50 years overnight. The documentation included a manifesto of sorts, written in precise scientific language, describing a multi-generational plan to perfect human genetics and create children immune to disease, aging, and genetic disorders. The writer claimed that conventional medical ethics had held back human evolution, and that their work, begun in the darkness of World War II, would ultimately save humanity from its biological limitations. Most disturbing was the final paragraph. The child you briefly studied is the 28th successful integration. 72 more are currently developing across 3 continents. By 2050, 10% of the human population will carry our improvements. By 2100, no unmodified humans will remain. Evolution cannot be stopped. 4 months after the autopsy that started it all, Dr. Kovacs received another anonymous package, a photograph of the missing baby, now appearing to be about 2 years old developmentally, though only months had passed. The child was sitting in what looked like a modern laboratory, surrounded by elderly people with youthful features similar to the refugee mother. On the back of the photograph was written a message in Hungarian. "Thank you for your part in this. You will see the results in your lifetime." International security agencies created a specialized task force dedicated to tracking down the network of Mengele's followers. However, their efforts were complicated by the mysterious deaths of 3 Interpol agents assigned to the case, each found with the distinctive single suture somewhere on their bodies. The story took another bizarre turn when historical researchers discovered that the real Josef Mengele might not have died in Brazil as officially reported. Dental records from the exhumed body showed subtle discrepancies, and recently declassified CIA documents suggested Mengele may have been extracted by former Nazi sympathizers within certain governments, his medical knowledge deemed too valuable to lose despite his crimes. 1 year after the autopsy, Dr. Kovacs was presenting her findings at a closed international medical conference in Geneva when she noticed an elderly man watching her from the back of the room. When their eyes met, he nodded slightly before disappearing into the crowd. Later that evening, she found a small package in her hotel room containing a vial of clear liquid and a note, "For when you're ready to understand completely." Analysis of the liquid revealed a compound similar to what had been found in the unusual suture, but more refined. Animal testing showed it could temporarily suspend cellular degradation, essentially pausing the aging process for up to 72 hours per dose. The ethical implications were enormous. This substance could revolutionize emergency medicine, giving doctors precious additional time to save critically injured patients. Yet its origins in humanity's darkest chapter of medical crimes raised profound questions about whether such knowledge should be used at all. 6 research institutions around the world began studying the compound, hoping to understand its mechanisms without perpetuating the evil of its creation. But each researcher involved reported strange experiences, being watched by unknown observers, finding the single suture pattern drawn on your personal belongings, receiving anonymous messages both threatening and promising. Meanwhile, refugee aid workers across Eastern Europe began reporting increased numbers of pregnant women seeking asylum, many showing signs of surgical procedures similar to what Dr. Kovacs had discovered. Most disturbing were reports that some of these women had no memory of becoming pregnant at all. The Vatican secretly assembled a commission of bioethicists and theologians to address what they termed the new Nephilim, children born of humanity but modified beyond human limitations. Their classified report warned of a future where humanity might split into 2 distinct species, those enhanced by Mengele's legacy and those left in their natural state. 18 months after the initial discovery, Dr. Kovacs herself vanished while traveling to a research conference in Berlin. Her hotel room was found undisturbed, with no signs of struggle or forced entry. The only clue was a medical journal left open on her desk, with a page circled describing theoretical approaches to extreme life extension. In the margin, written in handwriting matching the anonymous notes she had received, were the words, "Now you will see for yourself." 3 years have passed since Dr. Kovacs disappeared. The case remains officially open, but has faded from public attention. The Hungarian refugee's body was eventually cremated after all possible evidence was collected, though rumors persist that certain tissue samples were kept by unnamed government agencies for ongoing research. The miracle baby has never been found, though facial recognition software occasionally flags possibilities from security footage in research centers and medical facilities around the world. Children who seem to age at an accelerated rate, always accompanied by elderly individuals with unnaturally youthful features. Most disturbing are the recent reports from genetic testing companies noting an inexplicable trend: an increasing number of infants born with subtle genetic modifications that enhance immune function and cellular repair. These changes appear to be spreading through the population in a pattern consistent with the manifesto's claims, raising the chilling possibility that the plan launched in the darkest days of World War II is unfolding exactly as designed. Last month, a junior doctor at Budapest Central Hospital, the same facility where our story began, reported finding a patient's file mysteriously left open on her desk. The file contained photographs of Dr. Kovacs, apparently alive and well, working in what appeared to be an advanced laboratory. Her appearance was remarkably unchanged, despite the passage of time. Next to the photographs was a single suture, identical to the one found on the refugee mother years before.
The question now haunting international investigators is no longer whether Mengelé's experiments continued after the war, but whether they have already succeeded beyond our comprehension. Has a small group of doctors, operating in the shadows for 80 years, already fundamentally altered the future of humanity? And more importantly, is it already too late to stop what they've set in motion? What would you do if you discovered your own child carried genetic modifications from this program?
Would humanity be better or worse if we all eventually carried these enhancements? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and remember to subscribe for more dark chapters of medical history that were never meant to see the light of day. The truth doesn't stay buried forever. Sometimes it comes back with a cry in the darkness, from the most impossible place imaginable.